Hi everyone, Brian Coolis here from Native Instruments, and I'm really excited to be back here at Guitar Center to introduce to you the next generation of Maschine and Complete Kontrol S-Series. Both of these products have been completely redesigned to allow for tighter integration with Maschine or your DAW like Logic or Ableton, while also giving you dedicated buttons for key features that you would want to have access to when writing music. It's now faster than ever to get the musical idea that's in your head onto your computer in a fast and creative way. Let's take a look at the Complete Kontrol S-Series first. In the center here, we have these two high-resolution displays that display different information depending on if you're using Complete Kontrol, Maschine, or your DAW like Logic or Ableton. Around the screens, the layout has been completely redesigned to allow for tighter integration with Maschine or your DAW. We have dedicated buttons for key features like undo, redo, quantize, and even automation. On the left-hand side, we've now added a physical pitch and mod wheel to allow for more expressive playing, but we've also included a horizontal touch strip, which allows for more unique ways to manipulate your sound. One of the areas that has been greatly improved is the entire browsing experience when using this keyboard. When I hit the browse button, now on the displays, I'm able to see all of the instruments that I want to load from. The entire navigation process is now done from this one 4-directional push encoder. With this encoder, I can rotate left and right, I can push into select, but I can also click it left, right, up, or down. So the arrows and the encoder have all been combined into one centralized browsing knob. So if I click over to the left, I can choose between all the different instruments that I could use. Now, if you notice though, some of the instruments that I have on here are NI instruments, but also NKS instruments as well. There's a unified browsing experience when you're using the keyboard to browse for your instruments. And again, all of the browsing is just done from the screens, so I don't have to look at my computer when trying to find the perfect sound. If I click over to the left, I can now start scrolling through all the different instruments that I have available to me. So I'm going to select Monarch, and I'm going to go over twice to the All Type section. Now, one thing that makes the keyboard great and the Complete Kontrol software is that I'm able to filter my presets based on specific types of sounds that I'm looking for. So rather than going through the 634 presets within Monarch, I can say that I'm looking for a bass sound that is analog, and now it filters my results down to 125. So I know that all of these presets are in the bass category, and they're also an analog bass. Now, this tagging system can be done within one individual instrument, or it could be done across all of your instruments, NI instruments as well as all of your NKS instruments as well. So you're able to really find this particular sound that you're looking for fast. Now, with an updated version of Complete Kontrol, version 1.9, we've now added audio previews to the browsing experience. As I scroll through my presets, I'm actually going to hear a small audio preview of that preset. So I can hear what the preset sounds like without actually having to load this instrument. So this audio preview feature will work with all NI instruments as well as NKS instruments such as Arturia, Output, or Heaviosity. So now that I've found my sound, I can push in on the encoder and then it loads my instrument. Now that I have my sound loaded, I can start tweaking the knobs here to start customizing my sound. All of the parameters for all of my instruments come pre-mapped for me. So the first page of knobs that I'm able to tweak are usually the key parameters that you would want to have access to when working with this particular instrument. To access the other pages of parameters to tweak, all I have to do is hit the left and the right arrow and I can start going through more of the pages. If I don't like this particular preset, I can just hit the preset down button and it selects the next patch. Having the 8 touch capacitive knobs here gives me this hands-on control when I'm working with a particular sound. In addition to having the hands-on control with the knobs here, on the left-hand side, I also now have a physical pitch and mod wheel to allow for more expressive playing. We've also included a horizontal touch strip at the bottom to allow for more creative ways to manipulate your sound. The keyboard's integration is now even tighter with Maschine. On the left-hand side, I have dedicated buttons for key features of Maschine. So for example, I have the Scenes button that when pressed allows me to see the Ideas view directly on the keyboard. I'm able to select different patterns and actually arrange my song directly from the hardware. I can also view different patterns that I've created, adjust pattern length directly from the hardware. I can select different groups or different drum kits, but my personal favorite feature is key mode. Key mode allows me to trigger the 16 pads of Maschine directly from the keyboard. So if I just need to lay down a quick kick pattern or hi-hat pattern, I can just do that with the keyboard. Or if you just feel more comfortable playing a drum beat using keys, you can now do that with the keyboard. Now, we've also included some of the great features from the Mark I keyboard into the Mark II. We've included the Smart Play features as well as the light guide. With the Smart Play features, I'm able to use things such as scales or chords mode. By hitting Shift and Scale, I'm able to dial in a specific scale so that I can never play a wrong note on the keys, or I could set chord mode where I can play one note on the keyboard and it will play a chord progression. So it's very easy to get an idea from your head onto your computer in a very fast and creative way. The Smart Play features also include the ARP mode, which lets me arpeggiate multiple notes that I play, or you can use them both together. I can still use the chord sets and the ARP mode so that the ARP mode arpeggiates my chord sets. So having those combined together, you can create some really cool ideas out of that. In addition to the Smart Play features, we've also updated the light guide. You still get the same great visual feedback depending on what instruments you have loaded up. So for example, for the Symphony series, right now I have a full ensemble. The light guide tells me what instruments I'm playing. So for example, the blue section are violins, green section are violas, yellow are cellos, and then the reds are the basses. So again, the light guide will give you different visual feedback depending on what instrument you have loaded up. If I loaded up battery, for example, the light guide tells me what notes are my kick drums, my claps, snares, and hi-hats. So you get this great visual feedback when using instruments with inside of Komplete Kontrol. With the new keyboard, we've added dedicated buttons for key features you would want to have access to with inside of your DAW when working on music. Now, right now I have a project loaded in Logic, and I'm just going to show you quickly how this keyboard interacts with Logic. So really the first thing is I have 2 channels right now, both loaded with Komplete Kontrol. With the 4-directional push encoder, I'm able to actually select which Komplete Kontrol or which channel I want to have access to. So right now it's on one of the channels which I have Monarch loaded. If I click it up, it now takes me to FM8. If I click it back down, I'm back on Monarch. So it's very easy to navigate between the different channels that you have with inside of Logic. Now on the left-hand side, again, we have dedicated buttons for key functions that you would always want to have access to when using Logic. So we have a very basic button, but very much needed, an undo redo button. And we also have a quantize button for adjusting the timing of notes that you've played in live. And there's also a dedicated automation button, which allows you to record any sounds that you're tweaking. So let's just take a quick look at how that stuff works. So now that I've recorded a bass line, I can just press quantize and it fixes the timing, and then I'll press automation to record some filter cutoff. So we've also added a button to turn on and off the metronome, as well as a tempo button. Now the integration gets even tighter when I press the mixer button. I'm now able to see all of my channels with inside of Logic directly on the keyboard. I'm able to adjust the volume using these knobs of all of my channels, as well as adjust panning. So again, I rarely have to look at my computer. I'm able to essentially control all the key elements I would want to control within Logic, all directly on the keyboard. So we've added a lot of new features. We've added the high-res color screens, dedicated buttons for your key features of Maschine or your DAW, physical pitch and mod wheels, but the best part about all of this is that it's bus powered. So a power supply is not needed when using the keyboard. The power supply is optional. The brightness increases just a little bit, but again, it's not required to use the keyboard. So now that we have an overview of the keyboard, let's take a look at the Maschine MK3. The MK3 has a new beautiful design that's been overhauled in every detail. We have extra large pads, a multifunctional touch strip, dedicated buttons for key features of Maschine, vivid high resolution screens, and a 96 kHz 24-bit included audio interface. The MK3 still has the same great Maschine workflow that you're used to, but now with the dedicated buttons and improved experience, it's now faster to work with Maschine. Now let's take a look at some of the key features of Maschine. So in the center here, we have these two high-resolution displays that show me different information depending on what area of Maschine that I'm working with. So for example, if I hit the Browse button, I'm able to navigate through all of my instruments, my sounds, my different Maschine expansion packs. I can view sampling mode, where I'm able to edit and chop up samples. I can view mixer mode, where I can mix the levels of my groups or individual sounds. Or I can go to the arranger section, where I can view my patterns and arrange my song directly from the hardware. With the screens, I have an improved viewing experience. The 16 pads in Maschine have an amazing linear response curve. That means that they're extra sensitive and you get a nice linear response when you're playing with the pads. Now, the size of the pads are actually a lot bigger now. The center-to-center distance between the pads is still the same like the Mark I, Mark II, and the Studio. So it allows for a very natural hand position when you're using the Maschine. The extra size, though, also helps for beginners where you can use two hands to play a single pad, or for more advanced users, you're able to do more intricate techniques like flams or rolls. At the top of the pad section, I now have 4 dedicated buttons for the key features that I would be using when I'm working with Maschine. I have a dedicated pad mode button, which allows me just to trigger the 16 pads of Maschine. I also have a dedicated keyboard button, so when pressed, I can now use the pads to play it like a keyboard. I can also dial in what scale I want the pads to be in, so I could choose a minor pentatonic scale, and many more. I also have a dedicated chords button where I'm able to press one pad and it plays a chord. And I also have a step button, which allows me to step sequence in or just program my drum beats. To the left of pad mode, I have a dedicated fixed velocity button. This turns off the sensitivity for the pad. This means that when I play one of my sounds, I hear it at full volume. This is extremely useful for finger drumming, but also if you're chopping up a sample, you know that when you play the sound, you're hearing the sample at 100% volume. Another button that we've redesigned is the note repeat button. It is now twice as big. So if I'm finger drumming and I want to do a quick fill, I can quickly hit the note repeat button and I won't miss it. Now, the note repeat's shift function is actually the ARP mode. So if I do shift note repeat and I play multiple pads, it starts to arpeggiate them. Before, it was a shift function and it wasn't as easily accessible. So now, a quick shift function and I can toggle on and off the art mode. Directly below the note repeat button, we've now taken one of the features that was inspired from Jam and brought it to the Mark III, and this is the lock mode. Lock mode allows me to take a snapshot of my project. For example, take snapshots of sound parameters, where my filter is set, how much reverb I have, what's muted, what's not muted, and it takes a snapshot of that. I'm then able to customize the sound, create a washed out reverb, mute certain sounds, and just completely freak out my project. When I hit lock again, it resets everything back to its locked state. So this is a great feature when you're experimenting, wanting to test out certain ideas, but don't want to commit to it. This is also great though for a live performance setting. Now, if I hit Shift and the lock button, I now unlock Extended Lock, which lets me save snapshots and morph between those settings in real time. So the first step would be to hit Shift Lock Mode, and I'm going to save my first snapshot. Now I'm going to make an adjustment on my filter, save another snapshot, and let's do one more. I'll increase the resonance and turn the filter almost all the way down. There's my third snapshot. I can adjust the morphing time so that the filter actually sweeps over a period of time, which is a great tool for live performance. So you can use the lock and extended lock in very creative ways for a live performance. Below the lock button, I have this multifunctional smart strip. These 4 buttons above dictate what the smart strip is actually going to control. If I hit the pitch button, I'm able to play a pad and repitch it live. I have a mod button, which is just like the mod wheel on the keyboard, which allows for more expressive playing. One of the features that we've brought over from Jam and incorporated into the Mark III are the performance effects. The performance effects allow you to quickly add a very unique effect and morph it using the touch strip. So if I load one of these performance effects on the group, I do Shift Perform, and now I can use the first knob and choose what type of effect I want to use. Touching the touch strip activates the effect, it engages it, and then moving it to the left and right changes particular parameters. So for example, this stutter effect. I can even further manipulate the stutter effect and have certain things like pitch and the stutter rate and how much it's going to pitch down by. There's some cool effects like scratcher, ring mod, and basic filter sweeps. This is a great feature for live performance, but it's also very useful when writing a song. You can record all of that as automation. The last feature I'm able to use the touch strip for is Notes mode. With Notes mode, I'm able to hold down multiple pads and strum them using the touch strip. This is very useful when you want to strum out a melody or a bass line and just really think outside of the box. So if I choose one of my sounds and I hit keyboard mode, I can hold down multiple pads and strum using the touch strip. If I don't hold anything down, all of the pads play. So this could be really great for snare rolls or again, just really thinking outside of the box. Another feature that was inspired by Jam is the variation button. The variation button allows me to randomize or humanize hi-hat patterns or even just randomly generate bass lines and melodies. If we listen to the hi-hat pattern that I currently have, with this hi-hat pattern, if I hit the variation button, I currently have it on humanize mode. I'm able to choose the high and the low velocity, and when I apply it, it randomly sets those velocity values to all my hi-hats. So rather than having a very robotic hi-hat pattern, it just humanizes a bit, making it sound just a little bit more natural. I can also randomly generate hi-hat hits by hitting the random button. This is a great feature if you need to quickly come up with a bass line or a cool hi-hat pattern, but a lot of the times I just use it as inspiration. Sometimes a randomly generated bass line sparks an idea for the next song that I'm going to create. Last but not least, included in the Mark III is the built-in audio interface. The sound card includes balanced stereo inputs and outputs. It has a dedicated microphone input, a dedicated headphone output, MIDI in and out, as well as a pedal input for sustain or expression pedal. So with all of these new features in the Mark III, the screens, the included sound card, all of the new buttons for the key features, the smart strip, all of this can be powered just by a USB cable. The power supply is optional. The brightness increases just a little bit, but again, you don't need it. So literally computer, USB, and your pair of headphones, and you're good to go and you're ready to start making music. Now that we've seen both products separately, let's just take a quick look at how both of these interact together. Now, when I have both products connected together, I essentially have 4 screens that I'm able to work with. I could have different views on each piece of hardware. So for example, I could be on scenes view on the keyboard, arranging my song, creating new patterns, and just creating the structure for my track, while simultaneously being on mixer mode on the machine. So while I'm arranging, I can also be mixing simultaneously. As you can see, both of these products greatly enhance your workflow. We still have the great features from the previous versions while incorporating more dedicated buttons just to have that tighter integration with your DAW, with Maschine, or just again, finding sounds fast. It's all about just getting that idea that's in your head onto the computer as fast as possible in a quick, intuitive, and creative way. For more information about the Komplete Kontrol S-Series or Maschine, go to your local Guitar Center or visit guitarcenter.com.